to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Pastor Rob Araki, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the former Director of Athletics at Hanalani K-12 School in Hawaii. Pastor Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. My first time. I don't know if it might be my last time, but I appreciate it. It's my honor to be on.
Perfect. Well, let's have you begin by sharing with our international audience now where you grew up, where you went to school, your first job, etc.
Okay. The international may not know or may know, but I actually grew up in Daryl Nance's, territory. He was an athletic administrator at Wade Hampton. I grew up about 5 miles away in Greenville, South Carolina, at this place
Really?
called Jones. Yes.
But you didn't go to Wade Hampton then, or you
No,
did?
okay. So my brother and I wanted to. But we were going to the private school and I didn't dare. My brother, I don't think he dared either ask my mom if we could go to the public school because we were going to the private Christian school right down the road. But we both wanted to go because I know this is probably another one of the questions. We both wanted to try and play football for Wade Hampton.
Uh-huh.
Our school didn't have football. It was big in soccer, basketball, and other things, but we wanted to try football, but we never went. So yeah, I actually grew up partly in Greenville, South Carolina. And then I graduated from there. I had moved, and eventually I did the long route. You put 5 years, 4 years into four, or whatever you call that,
Right.
and three different colleges. Got my bachelor's in business administration, and then you had mentioned earlier, went on, got the CAA, the CMAA through the NIAAA as well.
Perfect. So talk about growing up in Greenville. Did you get a chance to play some of the I call them little league sports, but baseball, basketball, youth league football, soccer, etc.?
I don't know how old you are, but you remember, I think we're almost the same age. Whatever the season was, that's what we
Yes.
played. And many times it was the same coach. So from baseball, basketball, soccer, we didn't have volleyball. Volleyball was not big in the South. But just about any softball, baseball, just about anything. And here's my Little League baseball story. Some asked, how come I was the catcher? Well, I was the only one who was not afraid to catch the ball, but I could not even throw the ball from home plate to second base. We made up this special designation that I would throw to second base so he'd come running in when anyone would steal. Of course, back then they all stole on you, right? As soon as the ball crossed.
Sure.
So, but the only reason, and I had the coach's equipment. So you can imagine the face mask was bigger than my face, the chest mat or the chest protector, the shin guards. It was all encompassing. It looked like that's all it was, and there was a person behind there. But yes, baseball, I enjoyed. Basketball, that's probably where I excelled the best. That's where I was trying to go for college. But yeah, I played ping pong, whatever it was. Badminton, I remember taking third place in badminton one time. I got beat. I lost they let the instructors play. And the old PE instructors actually beat me. That's how good they were, because you only play seasonal, and these guys were like almost semi-professional. But yeah, so whatever season, that's the sport we play.
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing. So how does someone born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, decide to take up residence in the great state of Hawaii?
Yeah, well, actually, it started in Hawaii. My parents got divorced. My mom always lived on the mainland. They met in California, my parents. And so my mom really wanted us to go to Bob Jones because it was a private Christian school. And then after graduation, I still had one relative, my grandmother, and she wanted to see me. And so she bought a ticket, but it was a one-way ticket. I think if we would have known that, I probably wouldn't have come because we didn't have any money. So I end up staying out here, but the Lord knew, and the Lord had his direction, his hand in life on me. So
That's awesome. Let's talk for a minute, Pastor Rob, about some of the mentors and leaders that you've had in your life that have had an effect on you.
yeah. When I saw this, so one of my first ones, and maybe you had someone like this, Mr. Lucas, our PE teacher. He had, oh, Gomer Pyle, Sergeant Carter haircut. I don't know if you remember that, making
I
reference.
do.
He had, remember the old bike shorts? He wore the
Yes. Oh,
bike
yes.
shorts, like the three different colors every day. And he was, ooh, I don't know what the word is, but he, you're allowed to, I guess, if you go back then, throw the balls at us and, all this kind of stuff. But I
Yeah.
remember, and he was our PE teacher, and we had to go to PE all 4 years in high school. I don't know if it was like that for you, but he was probably one of my greatest mentors. And he shot the set shot with the one hand, but he was as deadly as Pistol Pete. And is this someone that we looked up to? In fact, two or three of us went in, we wanted to go into PE. So I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. When we went into our first year of college, we all took PE and we all changed our major because we didn't realize how hard it was. It was like pre-med science, all this kind of stuff. Like, what? We thought we were going to learn how to play badminton, learn how to play lacrosse and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, he was probably my first one, and about two or three of my other friends was Mr. Lucas in high school, our PE teacher, because he taught everything, all the fun. In fact, he taught us how to do the trampoline as well. And that was
That's
a big
awesome.
part of PE. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Pastor Rob, a little bit off the subject. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I saw that. What did I put down inside here? I don't know if it was necessarily a failure, but I wish I had gone to a Bob Jones or something like that school to help. I didn't realize that God was moving me on to be a pastor and just having a little bit more of that training. But with that, that also gave me the vision and the mission and the drive. Hey, you can go on and do it yourself too. And then become a lifelong learner, right? That was the big uh, word I remember when I was in school, lifelong learner. So that helped create a drive in me. Yeah, you may not have had that particular education there, but you can go on, you can find other avenues. So that's probably one of them. I wish I had maybe gone there if there was the opportunity, but that also gave me the drive to continue as well.
Perfect. Let's talk about the job of athletic administration and how it's different today, even though you're retired, how it's different today than when you first took that job years and years ago, or talk about some of the similarities.
Yeah. For me, and people always ask, I like this position because when I came in, I actually came in as a teacher. I wasn't looking to be a teacher. They just had a position. I just wanted to kind of be in the gym. I heard a gym was coming up. I was trying to put my name in there. He calls me back, the head of school calls me back and say, "Hey, we got a teacher's position." I'm like, no, not really. And he kind of talked me into it. But here was the neat thing. So they didn't have any kind of formal athletic director program or athletic administration program. So it was, you didn't know what you didn't know, but I think that was good for me. So as we're building the sports. I got to build it from ground up, from about 4 or 5 sports to when I left to about 30 different teams that we had. Now, the difference, and I think this could be along different platforms, you probably know this too. So the culture of the player, the
Hmm.
parents, the fans. Wow, I see that because I referee also. Well, I think that would be one of the, and we have some LTC courses on that to help these young ones to get mentorship in these areas. But the culture, depending on, now we see a little bit because I can cross over from the public to the private, the entitlement, right, of many of these families and that these athletic administrators have to deal with. That is huge. I was there long enough that I didn't have much of that. It was creeping in, but they kind of knew how I was going to run the program. I was still coaching, how I was going to coach. And so I didn't have that much of a blowback. But once I left, the younger ones, they did. They had some of those situations. So they call and ask, right? And they say, well, set your policies, and you probably did this too for some of the parents, maybe. Hey, we're not going to talk about a particular game until 48 hours after the game. You can set up employment, those type of things. That type
Great
of,
role.
Yeah, I never had to really deal with that until the end. And maybe this is the, I don't know if it's perils of having a pretty good program and success, that those things are going to come in also. But when I first started, no, they were just happy that we had participation. They were just happy that we had new uniforms, and they were happy that when we had the gym, finally we got a gym that we could play in. But those things quickly pass sometimes, and in that culture, that the mentality changes. So I've seen that definitely, and I still continue to see it. And you know this, right? One of the number one problems that athletic directors are going to find is the parents and the players, right? So
No, exactly. The entitlement, you mentioned that, and we could just go off on that subject in and
yeah,
by itself. But let's
yes,
let's get back to now your personal journey.
okay.
You worked at Hanalani,
Hmm.
and somehow you became aware of HIATA, and then obviously through HIATA you became involved with the NIAAA. So
Right.
take us through that all, how that all took place.
Okay. And I don't know if he ever was how far deep, because I know you came to Hawaii a couple of times. I don't know if you remember an athletic director named John Hum from the Pac-5, but
Met
anyway,
him,
okay,
but that
so
was
he
years
was out
ago.
of Hawaii Baptist, where Darren is. And we were looking, so I didn't necessarily want to go into the ILH, but my boss says, "Hey, I think we're growing. Hey, I'd like to be able to step this up. Would you look into the Interscholastic League of Honolulu and see what we can do to try and get in?" Well, so another one of my mentors was John Hum. So I got a hold of him, and he was asking me, he went me through the process and says, "Okay, what do you guys want to do? What are you looking for?" And then he said, "This is what I think you should do. These are things that you should need." And so from there, it was going to be joined into the ILH and then going to the IATA. And many of those situations was with George's. And then after a few years, George's asked, "Hey, you want to be a little bit more involved in IATA? Take the LTC 790, become a teacher, an instructor." And then it continued on. And so I'm grateful for this, that the NIAAA being on then the national faculty, and then being able to co-author 718 this past year. Actually, the past 3 or 4 years, you know that, right? It takes about 3 or 4 years
Hmm.
to do this. And then now the state coordinator for the professional development for Hawaii. So that's been a nice challenge as well too. So our Hayata, our state conference is coming up in about 3 weeks. So preparing for that as well too.
So let me ask you a follow up, because when I first met you was back when I was still the head of the UIAAA, and I was at
Right.
the state coordinators meeting in September. So talk to our audience a little bit about that, and what a great experience, and and what a working weekend that is, because
Oh,
you get no time off. So the floor is yours.
everyone says this, right? Your first one, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose. But I'll tell you what, each time you come, it feels that way because there's so much great resources. I love this opportunity because people will ask. I said, and maybe it's kind of a question for you also. This is the top of the top, right? This is the top 1% of the top 1% gathering together. Many doctors on this, many have
Hmm.
advanced degrees, and we're coming in now. And so I appreciate how it was the vision and the mission and the resources. And then you go there, and it's a wonderful program, but tons of information. I like that they always ask at the end and they try and adjust, right? They ask for suggestions or schedules. So they're adjusting even this year a little bit because they're long days. I'll be honest. Sometimes it's just like,
Right.
whoo, right? But what a great opportunity it has been, the great resources. And then, like anyone else, I know another question was the network that you can establish from some of these ones that have been in 20, 30, 40 years from across the country. Now, international, right? The last couple of years, I think
Right.
international ones are coming. The friendships that you make, the mentors that you're able to do, the network, all those type of things. You're just like, wow, right? That's the next level. That's the highest level, I believe, in this particular profession that you can get. So I appreciate that opportunity to be connected in that area as well.
let's have you talk now a little bit more about what 718 is, newer course. Give us the title. Talk it because there's not even a lot of the coordinators, some of them do, but not a lot of them get a chance to co-author a course. So I want you to talk about your course and the journey. 'Cause like you said earlier, it's like a 3 or 4 year deal. It's not just like a 1 year deal and we're done. So go ahead and talk about that.
So I just turned to my book. I'm glad I have it here. So the official title is Leading the Athletic Department Through Tragic Events. And
Right.
so here is an interesting capacity, but I happen to wake up early anyway. So the lead instructor is in Florida. The other instructors, Northeast, and then Nate, Midwest. So we would often have to meet, which was good, 4 or 5 o'clock Hawaii time as we're going through this and meeting. So they always kind of said, "Oh, but I'm usually up." This is the fun thing. I'm usually up anyway. And so, but that
Mm-hmm.
was an interesting dynamic to be able to put that together. Because I'm also maybe, although we're doing this online, I like the interaction when you're sitting down,
Right.
face to face. But I had to get used to that, be able to do that, sending the communications back and forth via email, via, downloading all the WeTransfer, all these type of things. Okay, so that was the one part. Four authors also. Maybe some I think had two or three, but that was neat to be able to interact from different parts. And then here's one of the reasons why I want to be on. I don't know if it was before or after, but the Lahaina fires had just
Right.
happened during this time. So they're part of here. If you remember, the Lahaina team got to go up to the Super Bowl and do
Mm-hmm.
a coin flip. So this is one
Right.
of the things that in 718 it was, and here's the main thing, and I got to be the more the head of this, is having a post-op team. You know how the medical doctors have a post-op, so after. A lot of things that
Right.
go on before, right? That's the firefighters, that's the first responders. But what happens afterwards? A lot of us don't have this in athletic administration. Okay. What about the athletic administrator? We need to kind of maybe give him some time off? Maybe it was tragedy that happened in his family. But having that post op, you have your first responders, and sometimes they're going to be the same. But here's our challenge: if you can, if you're big enough, try and keep them separate. Your post-op team is going to come in. They're the insurance company, is how we made the analogy, and they're going to come and help. Right? They're going to give you the finances. They're going to help you rebuild the house or whatever it is. That's what 718. Yeah, it's going to have all these type of things, and we're usually pretty good at the first responders. But are we at the end? What do we do? How do we remember them? It was long enough that Lahaina did, and all so their what do you call district, all of Maui had the day off. They had just for Maui, and they went into the ocean and they had a remembrance on that same day 1 year afterwards. So can you imagine the collaboration, the communication to have all that and to be able to go out? So
Right.
that's part of 718. Still a work in progress because this thing is changing almost every
Right.
single time. And here's I don't know if it's a neat thing, but almost everyone has an example of something that happened in their athletic administration and that they can share, right? So that's the neat thing about here. Sometimes people are reluctant, not in this course when we did it up in Austin. In fact, it could have gone 8, 12 hours. So it's one of those type of courses that had
Sure.
so much in there. But like I said, going back, the post-op team, having that developed and ready as you're leading the department through these tragic events.
That is fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. So let me allow me, if you will, to ask a follow up. As you know, I was in Hawaii last year for the NEDC, and then
Hmm.
we went on a cruise afterward. A lot of the
You're
NEDC
not the
people,
one that got
we
sick,
were
was it?
no,
Oh, okay, some got
I
sick.
yeah, it wasn't me though. It wasn't
Okay.
us. So we get to so we have 2 nights in Maui, and one of the days I take Bruce Whitehead, and we drive up by Lahaina, and there's
Mm.
still at that
Hmm.
late date
Yep.
last summer. Uh, they wouldn't let you go through just the main road through town, stop at the
Yep.
Safeway there, get
Correct.
a snack or a donut. Still, you couldn't get to some of the places. So is the rebuild taking longer than they thought, or talk
Yeah.
for a minute about that because that
Okay.
was such a tragedy.
Yeah. So this is what I was told. I tried to follow it quite a bit. Logistically, I think it's what maybe it's called. So all the infrastructure, the power
Hmm.
lines, the water. One, they finally decided, hey, we're going to have to move this back. So that was going to be a huge endeavor, right? So I don't know what you call it, their ocean line. I don't know how far they want to move that back now because they found it was just too close. Okay. So that was one part of it. Two parts of it was allowing the families to go in wherever they could with the resources to get whatever they wanted to find, whatever it was through the ashes and through the debris. Okay, and then three, I think it was like anything else, the financial aspect, being able to have that type of money to then, and I think the community also had to say, okay, how are we going to do this? Are we just going to bring bulldozers and just, flatten whatever was left and then rebuild? How are we going to do that? And so that was another part as I was following, just the collaboration, getting everything together. There probably was permit issues. There probably was other type of issues. Like any other place, there's the Hawaiian like sacred grounds that they have to go through
Hmm.
also, if you're allowed to go on there or not. And so it's just the neat thing though, they had, if you will, house pods. They kind of look like the 40-foot containers. Someone I think had donated
Hmm.
those. So they had put those on the side for those refinancing because my wife knew some of that refinancing, getting all that kind of stuff, insurance, all of that work together too. So yeah, I think they had, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, the first full house on a property was built and finished, I think.
Well, thank you for that update, and that's I know a lot of the listeners are interested not only in the U.S. but around the world
Yeah.
about how that's coming along. So thank you for sharing that. Now let me have you talk about the Hayata conference because I've had the
Okay.
opportunity to be
Yep.
there probably long before I knew you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, my first trip I think was 1999.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We had the Section C at 7 meeting there in 2001. I've been there for each of the section meetings. And of course, you and I, 2 years ago, were able to teach together at the IATA conference.
Mhm.
And I've taught there quite a few times. We talk about what a great conference it is, because I know a lot of people never get the chance to attend that. And by the time this airs, it will have already occurred. So talk
Okay.
about that.
And I'm not sure, George's was telling me one of the neat things for me and for Hawaii is that we are able to bring the public and the private schools together. I'm not sure how the other states run it, but even when I first started, Mark, so I think one of my first ones may have been in the 2000s, and there was still a little bit of, I wouldn't say contentiousness between the public and the private school. And I literally knew
Right.
one. So I went to one of the meetings and you had literally a round table. I says, anyone sitting here? He goes, oh, you're welcome to sit here. He goes, where are you from? I said, I'm from Hanalani. He goes, well, where is that? I said, well, we're a private school. He goes, you sure you want to sit with me? I was like, is it okay? You know, uh, there was some kind of tension maybe between the OIA and the ILH, but since then it has helped merge together. We bring people together, we network together and work it out. And then I think some of the other associations are the same. We are the athletic administrators, is kind of like Congress, if you will. They bring forth these bills, bring forth these proposals, and they vote on them. But then our state organization actually will finalize. So it's kind of neat to see that process. That's one. OA, the public school, private schools coming together. Two, you and I, the LTC,
Hmm.
the LTI classes, being able to offer those and seeing how it has grown, right? The 501s, the 502s, the 503s. And then we're going to have, I just had our schedule inside here. We might have up to 6 classes. This year, we're going to teach 790. So we're adding on a little bit another day, the nighttime Sunday night, be able to do that as well. So I enjoy that part. And then I like this part because I'm no longer on the voting. I don't vote because I'm not an athletic administrator, but sitting
Right.
in on these meetings and the conferences. It's just neat for me to be able to see, and then to be able to help, especially the new time. I think you had another question about that. Helping trying to mentor and network,
Right.
especially new time athletic administrators, right? You can just kind of see it in their eyes. They're like, whoa,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Well, you can remind Darren that even though your conference, when we're talking here, is 3 weeks away, as the chair of 790, I'm only a phone call away. I can be there. I'm sure.
Oh,
I'm sure it's
no.
too late for. I'm sure it's too late for this year because I've probably been to Hawaii Hayata conference. I've probably taught it 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So it's only fair that we give other people a chance to teach. But that's boy, people love coming there. I want you to talk for a minute, and there's so many. I'm going to mention some names, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping I don't leave anybody out. But talk
Okay.
about the Hawaii legends,
Hmm.
people that I've known for a while, like Irv Cal, bless his soul, who's passed on. Obviously, Blaine Geisen, Coach Don, George's Greg Van Camper, who was on the national board.
Yeah.
Obviously, Darren, Herbie Lloyd from Voice from
Yeah.
the Past,
Yeah.
Kiki, Mel Amai. I mean, just talk about this great group of Hawaii
Okay.
legends and
And
maybe some stories of dealing with them.
I'll give you another one. I don't know if he was around when you were there. Clay Benham. He was one of the original
I
executive
I
directors also.
I didn't know Clay.
Okay. So this is how like probably any soda association start. He was kind of like a one-man office, you know what I mean? And he went
Mm,
out there kind of speak softly, carry a big stick type of thing. Hey, here's what we're going to do. So that's how I was brought in. And it was amazing because I would sit next to Herbie, Irv Cow,
hmm.
some of these other ones, Coach Don before he was an executive director. And
Right.
you could just sense, and here's what I've always appreciated, because here's what the Bible talks about, the vision and the mission. They always set that forth in front of us. Here's what we're going to do as a league, and here's how we're going to do it. Watch how the older ones do it, and then we want you to be able to follow, right? Because we have, like many other associations, as an athletic administrator, you got to help take over a sport. So mine was golf, right? And to watch the intricacies and watch once again the vision and the mission of how you want to do these type of things, and then just the wisdom as they're talking in these meetings, and you're just listening to them, like Coach Don. You can just feel his
Mm,
love for others. You may have disagreed, and he'll come up and say, "Hey, I didn't mean to be contentious. Here's what I feel. Here's what I think," and be able to work again across the aisles, if you will, right? Because you're going to have small schools, even in the ILH and the privates. You had small schools, big schools. You have maybe
right.
different agendas, but they always try and bring forth and says, "Hey, we are here as a league." Okay, so you have to be able to think that way too. Lane the same way, right? As he took over, I got to sit next to him and just to listen. And he would often challenge us. Remember, are you voting as a league? Or are you voting as a school? Thinking of Hayata again, here's what I've always liked about the ILH. You vote your conscience. You vote, you take it back to your head of school, you take it back to your leadership. Here's the proposals. You vote what you believe is best, right, on behalf of your school, and then you vote your conscience. We're not going to ask you to vote as a group, ask you to vote as a block. You do get all the information and be able to come back. So I appreciate that about all the ones that kind of came before me. You know, the Irv Cow, Clay Benham, he was
Sure.
my first executive director, Blaine Dyson, Herbie Lloyd, all of those guys.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Let's have you just take a couple of moments and talk about your observations about the recent conference. Well, recent 8 months ago now, or 7 months ago
Oh, okay.
in Austin, the recent NIAAA
Yeah.
conference where obviously you rolled out 718 for the first time.
I'm always amazed on how it's pretty big. I don't know if it's but just the norm, yeah, the normal size, all the things that go on. But then as you first walk in, so much workers, the NIAAA
Mm,
office meeting, and they're greeting you. People are by the desk where they're giving out pins, the registration, all that coordination, right? And then the packed full of schedule. We thought Hayata and even the state coordinated summit, and then you come here and all the resources, all the networking, it from sun up to sundown, right? Many of those days, I think 3 or 4 of those days I was in there and I didn't even eat from breakfast until dinner. And I was going back. The only thing that was open was Wendy's. So I went to Wendy's like 3 nights in a row as I was going back. That's just how much that was in there. And then all the things that they have for you, right? They try and encapsulate everything the athletic administrator and the state coordinators would need. So I've always appreciated that. Let me see what other notes I had inside here. So that all the LTI classes, we just had our, I don't know if you were at the meeting this morning. So once again, suggestions. So they're only going to do one class per day. So they're going to try and give more time for other things to go on. I guess others have said
Right.
like to do these type of things because it gets pretty packed, pretty full. And then the flow. I've always appreciate the flow and the speakers that they have brought in and then the workshops.
Great observations. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll finish up with a couple of questions, Pastor Rob. The first being, you have two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator. They need to follow Pastor Rob's suggestions in order to be a success. What would your two suggestions be?
Yeah. So I only got two, right?
You can have three if you'd like, because you're special.
Okay. So I had to, when I was looking at this, I said, here's, I think, one of the first ones. And I was able to do this to the person that was taking over for me. You got to find a good mentor, right? Because John Hum, who I made reference before, he would always tell me, no one knows what an athletic administrator does except for another athletic administrator. Sometimes even the head of school don't have the understanding of what you do, right? Oh, it's just like a glorified PE class. Oh, I don't think so. Yet we have, right? Most athletic departments have the most student participation, I guess, if you will. In other words, they touch more branches than even math or science. And I'm not saying they're not important, but we touch so many more lives. So you have to have, even when I do reffing now, and I've been in it for a while, any new person coming in says, hey, you need to attach to someone, not like me, but attach to someone because of the immensity of what you're going to go through, being able to stay encouraged, being able to do your work. And then two, maybe this is 1A or two, and he was a Punahou, and I remember seeing him one day. Here's what I'm going to say. Make sure you schedule proper rest time. Right, Mark? Because you're going to be there from 6 to 10.
Absolutely.
One time I saw him, I said, what are you doing? He goes, on these particular days, I try and take off 1 to 3. I take off 2 hours. And then 2A to that, make sure you take care of your family. So I always tried to do that. Like I'd pick up my children, try and do some homework, and then come back. And you got to come back at 5, 6 o'clock for the games. So maybe those are three, right? Find the right mentor, schedule that rest. Maybe you did that too. Go out for a 2 or 3 hour nap. Go out to read your book, whatever it is, right? Find that balance. And then if you got a family, make sure you take care of them as well.
Great suggestions. I just would echo those. The mentor is so important, and time for yourself and time for your family goes without saying. So thanks so much for reiterating those points. We'll finish with this. Pastor Rob, what questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I'll give you the funny one. You didn't ask me about my golf game.
Okay, tell us about your golf game.
No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I've been trying to play a little bit more. Obviously, I like golf now, but having a good time. Maybe are you, then I have to be careful on this because I know it's going to be a podcast. I don't know if anyone's going to hold to me. Are you looking maybe to do another authorship on an LTC course? And the answer would be, I think so. And I think I have an idea. And I was just starting to write it down during our meeting today. So,
okay.
But I know.
So do you dare share that at this time, or are you just going to keep us in suspense?
Okay, no. And you see it on the NIAAA. In fact, we didn't do a PSA for that. Okay, so the state of affairs of officiating. How do we? So I've been on both sides now, right? Where did I put my notes on that one? I thought I had my notes inside here. So I was trying to do, we try and have like 4 chapters, right, in a LTC class. But I'm going,
Right.
okay, how do we keep them? How do we train them? How do we develop the proper relationship between coaches and rules officials, and then rules officials to others? How do we kind of train them? I know there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of information. I'm sent a lot,
Right.
conferences, all this kind of stuff, but I still see it even among athletic administrators. Okay, how do we maybe help develop? How do we get, there's a nice PSA that they had. So our men's volleyball, our university did really well. And we went to their conference championship and they had a whole PSA about their rules officials, right? Hey, you should be interested. Let us know. This is a great profession. You're helping back with the community, all these type of things, and they went the whole gamut. Oh, I'm a banker. I'm a teacher. I'm this. I'm that. Somehow developing that in a course, maybe.
Well, that is a great undertaking. I wish you luck on that note. That wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Pastor Rob Araki, CMAA, the former director of athletics at Hanalani K-12 school in Hawaii. Pastor Rob, can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mark. We'll see you soon.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.